What is up, guys? NinjaNick333. We are back with the top 16 now of the Pokemon Japan Championships. Looks like we've got a Gardevoir deck here on the right. I'm going to assume maybe this is Lost Box or something, or maybe another Gardevoir. Oh yeah, we see Psychic Energy there. So this is probably a Gardevoir Mirror. If I had to get... Yep, there's Gardevoir EX and a Corellia in hand, along with Reversal Energy. So yeah, Gardevoir Mirror makes sense. Gardevoir is one of the best decks of the format. It's just a little bit slow in the fact that it does have to evolve into a stage 2, but not surprised that multiple of those are making this top 16 for those who don't know. I did actually figure it out. I did start uploading the previous rounds, so I did figure out exactly what all of those rounds were, and I labeled them correctly in the video titles. But it was all Swiss up until this point. This is the first of the top cut. Even the day 2 rounds were like day 2 Swiss. So we have single elimination from here on out. Normally at our like American and European tournaments, we normally have top 8 cuts, but for this tournament they are doing a top 16 cut. I would like Pokemon to actually extend to top 16 cuts at some point in the foreseeable future. I think it's a little bit more fair. Either that, or they should do at the very least the asymmetrical cut. But doing top 16 is only one additional round, and it's always day 2, so it's really not delaying the tournament anymore. So they might as well do that. Gardevoir, just doing Gardevoir things. We've got a Radiant Greninja on the bench to conceal some cards. We're retreating into a Mew to use its Mysterious Tail to look for an item card from the top 6 cards of the deck. Looks like we are just trying to decide what that is. We're looking at the hand now, going back to the Mysterious Tail. Looks like we're going to grab the Super Rod. At the very least, as long as you don't plan to research your hand away, you should just grab any item that you find in there, even if there is one that you don't necessarily need. If you are going to play something like Research or use Refinement, you could always grab the Battle VIP Pass to thin that out of the deck and save some of the better cards like Super Rod for later, but looks like Super Rod must have just been the most playable card that he had in there. So just going to grab that to thin it out of his deck, so maybe the next turn or off his next concealed cards, he's more likely to draw some more live cards. Otherwise, if he were to leave the Super Rod in there, he could potentially draw that for turn. It's like a 1 in 50-ish chance at this point. Let's see, let's do the actual math. So he has, like, let's say 6 cards in hand, 6 cards in prizes, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8... so like 42-ish maybe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. Yeah, so he has like 42 cards in deck, I believe. So that would have been 43 cards with a Super Rod. So a 1 in 43 chance to draw that. Or 1 in 42 chance to draw the Super Rod. Very small odds, but might as well make that 0% chance. So we do go into the next turn here. We got a couple of Ralts down immediately. Looks off of off of a Battle VIP Pass. We're gonna go for this Level Ball here. Grabbing some more Pokemon. This time it will be the Mew. We're gonna retreat the Radiant Greninja. Use our own Mysterious Tail, and it looks like there is another Battle VIP Pass off of that. So we could go ahead and get the entire bench filled, but it looks like we're going and opting for the Rare Candy. That is an interesting play. Getting the full 4 Ralts to the bench would be more ideal, but in the Gardevoir Mirror, if you can Rare Candy Gardevoir on turn 2, you're going to be the one that is favored to win the game, because you are more than likely the one to get the first attack off, especially since neither of them ended up with a Zacian on their bench turn 1. You could always attach to a Zacian and use Roar the Sword to attach to itself. That way, on turn 2, you can just attach again and hit for 150. And of course, you don't want to do that, especially in the mirror like this, if you can avoid it, because Zacian is a 2-prize Pokemon with not a lot of HP, especially compared to the Gardevoir EX that has 310. So, again, getting that Gardevoir EX out, you can get a pretty easy, beefy attacker there to just start knocking out some of these single prize Pokemon and take the lead that way. So again, even though the Battle VIP Pass not being taken there seems a little bit counterintuitive, It might end up working out pretty well. We did see that there was already a Gardevoir EX in his hand, so it looks like he will be planning on going for that play. So this player on the left here, looks like he's eyeing up this Gardevoir EX in his deck. With this Ultra Ball, we might be able to see the Rare Candy Gardevoir from him as well. If he's able to pull it off first, since he did go first, he will be the one that is ahead. There is a Rare Candy in the deck, so we will definitely be able to get to there. Both of these players are zooming right along with their Gardevoir decks. Again, wish I could draw it like this, but I always brick pretty hard. And both of them only got 2 Ralts into play on turn 1, which is, again, a little bit surprising. You always want to get as close to 4 as you possibly can. The Cresselia might come into play as well, because you can always use that to heal some damage off while getting energies into play. The only bad thing about that is that then sometimes energies can get stuck to some of your Pokemon, and you might not, be able to load up a Zacian later in the game to one-shot a Gardevoir EX of your opponent. So player on the left definitely goes for that play that I was assuming this player on the right was going to go for. So now there is only 1 Ralts remaining in play from this player on the right. He's not going to be able to get any Curlia into play this turn. He does have that Rare Candy for the Gardevoir, so he can do a return attack. He's going to be the first one to get damage on the opposing Gardevoir, which is the more ideal situation, especially since the opponent does not have any room for a Zacian on his bench. He can't just pull out a really big attacker to one-shot the opponent's Gardevoir EX at once right here. So even though the player on the right is looking to be pretty far behind already, just on his second turn, he's still in it. So using his concealed cards to draw a couple more, got his third Psychic Energy in the discard pile, so now he definitely has enough to attack with the Gardevoir EX. You're going to prefer to attach 1 from hand to it as well, just because that is 20 less damage that you're going to do to yourself. So going to use this level ball, probably going to be finding a Ralts here. I don't know what else he would want to go for. Normally you would want to go for Curlias on turn 2, but maybe he prized double Ralts, it looks like, because he ends up going for a Manaphy. So yeah, normally if you don't have Ralts, you're going to go for Ralts. If you do have Ralts, you're going to go for Curlia to evolve them. And since he has no Ralts, there's no reason to go for Curlia, so actually just goes for the Manaphy just to thin it out of the deck for his Iono, making sure that it goes to the bottom of his deck. Both players are going to draw a fresh hand based off of their prize card, so player on the left is going to get 5, player on the right is going to get 6, so we're going to be hoping that the player on the left does draw pretty dead off of this. They do not have any Curlias in play currently, but they still do have the Radiant Greninja, so really weird to see both players in the same situation where they have no Curlias, but both of them have a Gardevoir EX. Of course, my cat is running out around the apartment. It is 10 p.m. at night, and she is screaming weird because she has a toy in her mouth. And I just got a text notification from her litter robot saying that it just completed a clean cycle, so naturally she has the zoomies for a good reason. Just thought I would... I literally get a text every time the litter robot cycles. It's so funny. Sometimes I'll be away for the weekend. I can leave her for a few days at a time and feel fine. So if I go to like a regional, I'll leave her here, and I'll just be at the tournament, and between rounds, I'll look at my phone. It's like, oh, the litter robot just completed a clean cycle. I'm like, all right, she's right here. She's alive still. But for NAIC, I'm going to be gone for about a week, so she is going to be watched by my aunt, as usual, when I go away for a long time. So Gardevoir has a ton of damage on it now. We are at 150 damage. 1 more Gardevoir EX attack away from being able to be knocked out. So even though the player on the left here is up a prize, they are feeling behind on prizes, surprisingly, even though they're ahead. But their board setup is way better. They have 2 Curlias now, managed to draw those, get into those off of that Iono. Not being disrupted whatsoever here. Gonna retreat that Gardevoir. This makes complete sense You definitely do not want to be attacking with that again, because you're just giving a free 2 prizes to your opponent, allowing them to easily win the prize trade. And then it looks like I'm assuming this player on the right scooped. Yeah, they're zooming into the player on the left, so that's saying that he did win game 1. So this is best 2 out of 3. So we will see. Maybe the player on the right can draw a little bit brighter. Hopefully not prize 2 Ralts this time. He looks familiar. I think he was on in one of the previous rounds as well on stream. So yeah, just really unfortunate that he did have to prize those, and the fact that the player on the left did get that Cresselia there was really good, because he was probably just going to knock out the Mew on the bench and start healing that damage off of his own Gardevoir EX. Funnily enough, player on the left here looks more nervous than the player on the right. And he is, of course, pile shuffling mid-match. So everybody watch out. Azul might be coming for him. And he's taking a significant amount of time to shuffle his deck as well. So for those who don't know, pile shuffling is not shuffling. You are just putting your cards down in a predetermined order. Whether you know what that order is or not is irrelevant. When you mash the deck, like he is doing now, that does randomize it, because your brain has no control over where you put each card in the stack. Whereas if you are putting cards into, like, say you're doing piles of, I believe it was 7 he was doing, you're always putting the card on the top of the deck to the first pile, and the second card from the top into the second pile, and so on. So you're determining the order on purpose, which does not classify as randomization. So that is the facts of the matter. So technically, pile shuffling is illegal if you do not do a sufficient mass shuffle afterwards. So save yourself some time and don't do the mass shuffle. I'm not going to call the cops on you if you do it. I'm just going to call a judge if you're going to take 5 minutes shuffling your deck. Especially if you're piling for it. If you do piles between games and it takes you like 5 seconds, I mean, that's a skill. So then it's fine. So we're still shuffling. And shuffling. Did have a mulligan, this is why we're shuffling again, but very glad to see he did not pile a second time. Gets a basic Pokemon this time. Looks like both a Ralts and a Spiritomb. You're not going to need the Spiritomb in this matchup. It only shuts off the abilities of basic V Pokemon. It's not going to be shutting off any like Gardevoir EX abilities in the mirror. If it were to be able to work like that, you could always use your own Gardevoir EX's ability, get a bunch of energy into play, then put the Spiritomb down. But again, that is not the effect on the Spiritomb. Only works really as a Mew counter, and I myself do expect Mew decks at NAIC to be playing the card itself just like it does play Path to the Peak now. I see no reason why Mew would not want to play their own Spiritomb. They already play Penny to heal damage put from, Lost Mine onto their Genesect. Usually the way that Lost Box decks play against Mew is they try to stack up a bunch of damage counters on Genesect, take multiple prizes in one turn that way. They can go for, of course, if they have the Drapion, they can always Drapion a Mew VMAX as well. But the counter to that is to play a Penny in your deck. You can pick up the Genesect, put it back down, draw some more cards. So if you have the Spiritomb in the deck, yes, you only draw until you have 5, but the ability is shut off anyway. So I guess it would turn back on if your opponent had an Empoleon. Wait, no, that wouldn't work because the Spiritomb is shutting it off. It gets a little bit complicated on how that works. But you can always put it down to stop your opponent in the mirror, and then you can always penny it back up so you can use your own abilities again. So we did get the full 4 Ralts on the player on the right side this time, going first. This will be a completely different game than the previous, as long as he's going to be able to get into those Kirlias. If we could see 4 Kirlias come into play, or 3 Kirlias and the rare candy Gardevoir EX, this player on the right is probably just winning this game. Again, you always are significantly advantaged when you go first in a mirror match. Player on the left does put down the Artisan, is going to allow him to search his deck for any one basic Pokemon and put it down onto his bench. He's going to choose a Ralts naturally. Unfortunately, is going to fail this Mysterious Tail that he just retreated into, the very beautiful looking alt art. But we do have a level ball. We could always just level ball for another Ralts here. Otherwise, we could hold the level ball for a Kirlia. With what his hand looks like now, he doesn't really have a draw supporter or any other ways to draw cards right now. So I think that the more disciplined play is to actually hold the level ball for the Kirlia and just try to play the game with only 2 Ralts. It worked for him in the first game, but that's also because the other player only had 2 Ralts available to them for the whole game. And we already see the rare candy Gardevoir just had that raw in the hand. That is absolutely immaculate. Again, this is going to be a completely different game than game 1. So the Iono coming out, disrupting both hands to the bottom of the deck. Both players going to draw a new 6 from the top. We are going to get our first refinement off now. Was able to evolve into that before the Iono. We're going to be able to even Ultra Ball here, getting rid of a Battle VIP pass that we no longer need. It is not turn 1. To get the Cresselia. Cresselia really huge here. You don't have to attack with the Gardevoir EX now. You can put energies into play and then heal the damage that you put onto yourself with the Cresselia while knocking out a Ralts that's on the bench. Only thing we'll have left to do this turn is retreat the Mew, but that will be fairly easy since we have 3 energy in the discard pile. We only need 2 energies to even do this play. You put 1 Psychic Embrace to the active, retreat it, and then put 1 Psychic Embrace to the Cresselia, as well as 1 Psychic Embrace to another Pokemon. Looks like we're actually going to go for the Gardevoir instead. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think that he's hoping that his opponent... I think he's thinking that maybe the Mysterious Tail is stronger here. Otherwise, he's maybe thinking that the devoting the psychic energies being spread across the board is too risky, but I think that getting rid of the Ralts is a lot better of a play there, so I'm not sure how... I definitely don't like the knocking out of the Mew. Although I guess the Mew could dig 6 deep for a level ball to get a Kirlia. But again, if you're getting rid of a Ralts, that's 1 less Kirlia that comes into play this turn anyway. And I think the Kirlias are just better than the Mew in every sense. So we do have a research. We're going to get rid of a whole bunch of dead cards, including 2 Battle VIP passes. And some energies as well, which is good to have in there. So we're going to draw a fresh 7. Hopefully we are going to find a couple of Kirlias here. The active and one of the bench Pokemon can evolve into Kirlia this turn. We get 1 Kirlia, and it looks like 5 energy cards. That's awful. So we're going to evolve the bench first, of course, makes sense. We do have a rare candy. If we were able to draw into our own Gardevoir EX, that would have been really great here. You could have evolved the active and attacked with it, and it would have been a lot like the previous game. You would at least still have a chance, but unfortunately, nope, we get the level ball. But we do have the Mirage Step Kirlia, so we will be able to use that Kirlia to Mirage Step 2 Kirlia into play. And again, I think getting rid of the Ralts last turn might have been the better play because... Or no. No, I guess getting rid of the Mew was the correct play, because if you did get rid of a Ralts, the same amount of Kirlias would have still come into play this turn. Although I guess maybe one of them might have been drawn instead of being able to be Mirage stepped out. It really depends on how the draw went. But if he was able to not draw into the Kirlia or discard it and super rod it back in, we would have still seen the same amount of Kirlias. But No damage coming out of this player from this turn, so the player on the right is going to be able to get a second knockout before the player on the left is even able to get off their first attack. So going to be 2 prizes ahead. That puts you at a significant lead in this mirror match. We're going to start chaining our Curlias now. We even get a Shining Arcana Gardevoir down as well. So we've drawn an additional 8 cards this turn because of the first refinement, along with these 2 others we just put into play, and the Shining Arcana we evolved our first Curlia into that was put into play last turn. So we're going to retreat our Gardevoir EX into the Cresselia, and this is definitely the spot where you want to be using the Cresselia right now. You already have damage onto some of your Pokemon in play. We are going to be able to knock out a Curlia, which is a lot better than knocking out a Ralts. You heal more damage off your board, and also, you know, taking out a Curlia is 1 less discard draw 2 that your opponent has. So gonna be using the Artisan here, searching our deck for another basic Pokemon to put into play. Looks like he's thinking of a Cresselia of his own, but again, you are just 2 turns behind at this point. You're gonna have to go for some sort of big knockout play at some point. Maybe, I don't know, you're going to have to set up a really big Shining Arcana Gardevoir to knock out a Gardevoir EX as fast as possible in order to try to swing the prize trade back in your favor. If you use a Zacian V, that is something your opponent can easily return knockout. So even though you would take 2 prizes, your opponent would take 2 prizes, and then you're still just as far behind. So if you can take the knockout on the Gardevoir EX with a Shining Arcana Gardevoir, that's really where you want to be. So that is a reason why Champions Festival would be really good here. You can get an additional energy on that, as well as if you can hit an energy or 2 off of the Shining Arcana itself. That way you can attach them without having to put them into play from hand. Looks like we've got maybe 5 or so energies in the discard pile right now. So we do have plenty. Even discarding another couple off of the Ultra Ball here, we are going to be able to find maybe our Shining Arcana Gardevoir or our Gardevoir EX. We do need 1 or both of those this turn. Getting the Gardevoir EX allows you to at least get rid of the Curlia this turn, and then maybe on the next turn you try to go for the boss's orders on the Gardevoir EX. So I think maybe evolve the active to the Gardevoir EX. Hope it lives 1 turn, which it should, because your opponent is not going to be wanting to put, again, that Zacian into play. You don't want your opponent to be evening out the prize trade. So we do go for, it looks like the Shining Arcana. We're going to see if we can draw an additional 2 cards off of this. Again, I think that the correct play is to get the Gardevoir EX, but it looks like we're doing that because we have the rare candy in hand. We could evolve into it from the Ralts and keep 3 of the Curlias in play still. We are going to level ball and fail it, just getting it out of the hand in case we get maybe Iono'd or Judged in a future turn. I don't think Gardevoir is really playing Judge anymore. I think they've completely replaced it with Iono. From the lists I've been seeing recently, it's like 2 Research, 2 Iono, and no Judge. It would make sense. Iono's a lot better of a supporter in Gardevoir than the Judge is. It feels like at worst it's the same as Judge most of the time, because you usually have the prize deficit in matchups that aren't the mirror. So we are going to get the concealed cards, Radiant Greninja down now. Going to use its ability immediately to draw an additional 2 cards. We have plenty of energy in the discard pile now, but we are still looking for that Gardevoir EX. We do get to it. We have the Ultra Ball. We're going to be able to get rid of another dead level ball that we can't use because there's no 90 HP or less Pokemon left in our deck. But we are going to be able to get this Gardevoir EX. Unfortunately, we've evolved our active into a Shining Arcana, and we are going to be able to evolve one of our benched Curlias into it. So I think at this point you're going to want to retreat into the Gardevoir EX and attack with that, because again, that is your beefiest dude. But nope, looks like we are going to be attacking with the Shining Arcana. We're just going to be allowing our opponent to continue their prize advantage. So 4 damage counters now on the active. If your opponent is able to find a new Cresselia, they could always knock it out with the Cresselia's ability as well. Heal a lot more damage off of their own board, and then it's looking really bad for you. The only way that it ends up working out the best, though, is if you were to maybe promote a Curlia so you can retreat that energy back off to keep more in the discard pile. Because at that point, if you're using Cresselia second turn in a row, you're getting a little bit too many energies in play and not enough in discard if you do want to attack with something like Zacian later in the game, or if you need extra energies on that Shining Arcana Gardevoir in order to use its Brainwave, the same attack basically as the Zacian V. So, yep, the Cresselia was super rotted back in, immediately gotten back out with the Artisan. We do have the Mew here. We still have to be able to use... I think I would have used the Mew first before the Refinements and Shining Arcanas. That way, that's one less item card that's in the deck. More likelihood that you're going to hit the Psychic energies off of the Shining Arcana if you want to get extra energies into play that way. It also just, of course, thins a dead card. I think most of the item cards in the deck at this point are dead cards, so that would allow your Shining Arcanas to hit more live cards, like supporters. You probably want to be stacking Boss's Orders in your hand to be using on future turns. Looks like we're going to use the Boss here to get rid of the Radiant Greninja. Or no, we are bringing that active, knowing that our opponent has a lot of energy in play in the discard pile. They would need to attach from hand in order to retreat it. You cannot use Psychic Embrace on a Pokemon that is not Psychic type. So that Greninja might be locked into the active spot, allowing this player to continuously heal off their board multiple turns in a row, or just take a knockout here on the bench now, and then on the next turn, be able to do a little bit more with another attacker. So we are going to be playing the Collapse Stadium. We're going to get rid of our own Mew, which is getting rid of 20 damage that is on the board. But it's also going to remove one of the Ralts from our opponent's board. Otherwise, they would be getting rid of a Curlia or a Gardevoir, which they can't afford to do. They would prefer to get rid of the Radiant Greninja here, but they're not able to. So now we are going to heal ourselves off of a bunch of damage, knocking out that Curlia on the bench, and we are at 3 remaining prize cards. Our opponent still has 5, and they're going to have to find some way to be able to pull this back here. There's only 22 minutes left in the game. Again, your opponent in the mirror match is 2 prize cards ahead, and you were just dealt a devastated blow by having both a Ralts and a Curlia removed from the game at the same time. I'm not sure at this point if you can come back. You do have one Gardevoir with the Shining Arcana that has an energy and no damage counters on it. So again, if you are able to maybe do a Boss's Orders play on the Gardevoir EX this turn, attacking with that, you might be able to get there. But again, you're going to have to find a Psychic energy to attach this turn to the Radiant Greninja. So hopefully we will be able to draw enough cards to get there. The Shining Arcanas can even attach that to a non-Psychic Pokemon. So if we do draw into it, we can just attach it right to the Radiant Greninja, which is immediately what we do. So you'll have to see that. We are going to use our second Shining Arcana. We do get the Boss's Orders. So is there a way that we can stack enough energy onto a Gardevoir in order to take a knockout on the EX this turn? So the EX has a remaining 290 HP. So the way the math works out is you would need 8 energies in order to hit 300. Otherwise it would be 270. So 8 energies, that would mean 7 from the discard pile, or no, 1 for turn, 6 from the discard pile. So you do have enough HP to be able to do that. You were able to attach with the Shining Arcana this turn. So can you do that? Looks like we are going to hit with the other one. You would have had to attack with the one on the left. Now, the thing is if you were able to get the 8 energy on that one Gardevoir, you still have 3 on this one. So you would, if you're playing 12 energies, that would leave you with 1 spare energy. We know that there's 1 energy, I believe, left in the deck. So he would have to have had 0 energy prized and all of the other energies in his discard pile. So it's something that could have been done. Looks like he was able to do it. He was able to get all of that energy onto his Gardevoir and take the knockout, just barely being able to do it. It is better if he does attack with the already damaged one, if he is able to pull that off. It looks like he was able to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 8 energy. Yeah, and also it does have more energy on it. So I don't know why I was thinking that you have to attack with the undamaged one, because you'd be damaging itself anyway. That's just a little bit of a brain fart by me. So that was a lot easier of a turn to actually accomplish than I was thinking. So now player on the right does have to find another Gardevoir EX. He's already used a Super Rod as well. Usually these decks only play 1 to 2 Super Rod. So if he does have another one available to him, he might want to find that to put the Gardevoir EX back in. There are times, of course, where you do prize one of your EXs. So with the first one going down, that is a little bit risky here. We are going to replace our own Collapse Stadium. We've gotten the use out of it that we needed. We're not really scared of our opponent putting any more basic Pokemon into play anyway. So might as well play that just to thin it out. Still plenty of energy left in the deck. It looks like we've got at least 3 in there. So we have an active Curlia. We've already used its refinement. We've gotten another Curlia on the bench that could still use its. We thin another Curlia out of the deck with the level ball. Go straight into the Shining Arcana of our own. It would be pretty good here. We could, let's see. We could retreat the energy off of this Gardevoir in order to put the Cresselia back up and then use the Cresselia to knock out our opponent's active. We would only need 2 damage counters in play in order to do that. So by putting that energy back into the discard pile off of this Gardevoir, we can just put one back into play with the Gardevoir EX. But again, we still need to find the Gardevoir EX. So we do get 1 energy off of the Shining Arcana. So we are able to attach that. So we do have plenty of energy available to us. Still 2 left at the very least between our hand and deck, just in case the same play comes out where our own Greninja does get bossed. Looks like we dig through the deck just enough to finally be able to find our second Super Rod. We are going to put back the Gardevoir EX along with another couple of cards. Hopefully we have maybe an Ultra Ball in hand to be able to search that Gardevoir and leave those other 2 cards in the deck. Otherwise, maybe we have access to an Iono, which would be a 2 out of 3 chance to find that Gardevoir. Oh, no, it would be guaranteed because we do use the Artisan to put the Ralts back into play that we just shuffled in. Oh, we had the Gardevoir EX in hand. So we shuffled the other one back in just in case this Gardevoir gets knocked out. We know if it does get knocked out, our opponent will still have 1 prize card remaining. So trying to de-incentivize our opponent from being able to even go for that play in the first place, getting a second boss knockout. So what do you do here? Again, I think you probably go for the Cresselia play. Healing damage off of your own board always feels pretty good. And taking a knockout with something like Cresselia instead of one of your Gardevoirs is a lot less of a waste of resources. It's the most conservative play you can really go for. Looks like we also attached for turn to that Gardevoir as well. Healed that 20 damage off of that to knock out the opponent's Gardevoir. And we are going to take a prize, going down to 2 prize cards remaining. And now all that we need to do to win the game is do a big knockout on a Gardevoir EX. We have thinned our deck of pretty much everything that we possibly could have. The only thing that we are really afraid of is an Iono. There are quite a lot of cards in our hand, so if we do not have enough draw to get to that boss's orders, if we do get Iono'd, that could be a little bit of a dicey situation. But of course, our opponent will still have to get a boss KO on our own Gardevoir EX, even if we were to be Iono'd this turn. So we should still have a couple of turns here, 1 or 2 turns left available to us here on the right. So definitely favored for them, but there is still a small chance that this player on the left is able to pull the game out, which is a little bit surprising because earlier in the game, if I were them, I would have definitely considered conceding to save time. But if they do win here, they don't have to go to a game 3. He will just win outright. If they do have to go to a game 3, they only have 14.5 minutes left, and for a deck like a Gardevoir, that is absolutely no time. Normally, a game of Pokemon does take at least 20 minutes to complete on average. So then it would, of course, be by prize cards, and if this player on the left does lose, he will be favored because he is going first. He's more than likely going to be the first one to get to a Gardevoir EX. So he will be able to, more than likely, again, be the first one to take a prize card. So plenty of energy in that discard pile. We're trying to do some math here, it looks like. Maybe we're going to go for that boss's play on the Gardevoir EX now. But I would assume at this point your opponent does have access to a boss's orders. They did play that Pal Pad too. I think they might have put one into their deck. Even if they do get Iono'd, I did miss what they put into the deck with the Pal Pad. I am definitely assuming there was at least one boss's orders. So if they do get Iono'd, they're guaranteed actually to get the boss's orders. So I don't even think you can play the Iono right now. So very skilledly played by the player on the right. Because if they get Iono'd, they're going to draw 2 cards, then they draw for turn, and then they can use 2 Gardevoir abilities. They'll be able to draw 7 cards. They have probably 4 cards left in deck, so they would be guaranteed to draw into the boss's orders. It would just be a question of being able to get all of that energy onto the Shining Arcana Gardevoir. Looks like we go for the Kirlia play, knocking out the opponent's Ralts, going down to 2 prize cards of our own. So now we will have to see, do we have the boss play? Are we able to stack enough damage counters? We will need 9 energy on the Gardevoir on the bench. I think we might still have 1 energy available in hand to be able to attach to it. And we have at least a couple of energies in the discard pile. But there are 5 in play right now. I don't know if there's going to be enough energy to be able to one-shot a Gardevoir EX. And that's again coming down to the fact that you've used the Cresselia so many times, you've made it so now there's too many energies in play. You can't retreat all of them off at the same time. You've even already used a Collapse Stadium, so you can't even collapse away one of the Shining Arcanas either. Looks like we're going to go for the Iono of our own. Our opponent's deck is fairly small. They might be able to get exactly into what they need, but they're only going to have 1 Shining Arcana and the Radiant Greninja in order to draw into those, and I don't think there might not be any energy left in deck to even use the Radiant Greninja. So this is coming down to be an extremely close game. So we are going to use the Psychic Embrace to put 1 energy onto the active, take the knockout on the Cresselia. Now, does the player on the left have the boss's orders play? Looks like they do have an energy left. They are going to be able to use concealed cards, gets the boss's orders. But is he going to be able to get 9 energy onto a Shining Arcana Gardevoir? Does he get to... Oh, did he just draw the Zacian? Oh man, if he just drew the Zacian, he wins. He did. He just drew the Zacian off the Shining Arcana. He got the exact 2 cards he needed off of his extra 4 cards he got off of those. If he did not draw into that energy, he would not have been able to use concealed cards. If he missed that Zacian off of that last card, he did draw that as his last card off of his last one and only Gardevoir. that was left on the bench, ends up barely squeezing out that win. That was absolutely amazing. That was crazy. Both of those players played that really well, and that's exactly what you want to see out of a Gardevoir mirror. So as always, guys, do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe. All of that good stuff to feed that YouTube algorithm. It is really important, and we will see you guys next time for, I mean, I think it's going to be just going straight into top 8. I'm not sure. We'll have to see. All right, we'll see you then.